right, y'all. What's good? You're rocking with your boy ReaLife, and you're on Validated Magazine. Today's guest is a producer and DJ that goes by the name of DJ Shok. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man. Definitely excited to be on here and talk about the music biz, history, music, everything.
No, definitely. So, for those who don't know, can you kind of give us some background on kind of who you are as far as a producer and DJ?
Yeah, I mean, started DJing at the young age of 10. Do a lot of local stuff here in Yonkers. Then I started DJing in the Manhattan clubs, like Octagon and just the different hotspots like back in those days. And then I started producing at around 16. And I started my own label when I was 18 called Mass Vinyl. And we have some like nice underground hits. High Tech 24/7 was like our biggest record. We did that like right out of my basement. And we did marketing promotions, college hits, CMJ, all that right out of the basement. We did some good numbers with vinyl. Red Alert was playing it, took us to Romania, Bay Area, Japan. And that was that independent label time. And then in 94, I did my first major release with Raw Breed with Godfather Don, Kool Keith, and Melly Mel on the track. That was on Sony Continuum. And then fast forward, signed with Ruff Ryders like in 98. I think it was, like 98. And then I did, my biggest record ever, Slippin for DMX. Like right after I signed, I did that. Went on to do, I think like maybe 6 songs with Eve. I did a single for Drag On, Spit These Bars. Also did Life Goes On, which is like his life story, which is also on that same album. So I did the single. I did Rah Digga's single with Busta, The Imperial. Around that same time, did song with Busta for his Anarchy album. I've done stuff with Snoop, Jadakiss. All the early D Block stuff is actually from my studio in Yonkers that I had when I had my independent label in 96. I opened up that studio, and it ended up becoming the D Block studio like around 2002, I would say. And so we did all the early, me and Sheik, all the early D Block songs that he did solo. Monday Night Football was like a super popular mixtape. We did like Jadakiss Dissing Beans in the studio. That's he shouts me out on that. On the disco beat. That beat was supposed to be for a remix for Olivia on J Records, and then Jadakiss comes to the studio with the beat, and instead of doing that, he disses Beans, which I was like, damn. We just lost some money on that remix, because once you use it, you lose it, And then what else? And I mean, D Block blew up after that, and I went into the country and I hid out for a little while, and the rest is history, as they say.
Nice. So that Spit These Bars for Drag On, that beat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of like where did that beat come from? Like, how did you even come up with that?
I'll tell you, the equipment I used on that was the Proteus 2000. That's the that sound. Mm-hmm. That's like I can't remember what the name of it was, but it's a sound on there. And I used the Roland MC50 for sequencing. I used the Kai S950 for the drums. And the strings, I think, came out of the Proteus too. And I mean, that was just a track I had done, and I was shopping that beat around. And I actually originally did that for an R&B remix, because I was, they would like send me acapellas and stuff, and I would submit. And I kept shopping that beat because I felt like it was something strong. I played it many times at Ruff Ryders sessions, and they kind of like passed on it. And one night, like it was just a good vibe, good energy. And I put it on, and everybody gave the reaction that I felt like it deserved finally, like after playing it maybe 8, 9 times without no exaggeration. Like
Mhm.
you know, sometimes people will look at you like you know, in the camp, like you played this before, but you know, but I felt strongly about that one. So I kept playing it and it was the right moment, you know, and drag took to it. D liked it and they spent a lot of time curating like his rhymes to it and how he was gonna attack that one. And you know, thankfully, I mean, it was a big record for Ruff Ryders, for drag, for me, you know, and that right there, you know, as far as more with the production on it, um, I mean, that's the main elements. I would say that's just I said pretty much the main pieces of it.
So the first time Drag On heard it, did he take to it?
Uh, I don't know if he was there when I first. He was around, like you know, because those sessions were like real crowded.
Yeah.
It was like everybody. We had multiple studios, you know, rooms in the studio. That I actually played in the studio in Yonkers that time, and it was just a lot of people there, and it just caught a vibe. And then I think I don't remember the whole process of it, and then Swiss co-signed it, which was basically you know the last stamp you needed, you know, to
Yeah.
get stuff moving at you know production wise at Ruff Ryders. Like Darren was pretty much in charge of the music, but when Swiss you would co-sign something that you knew like you didn't have to worry about you know having an issue like where it might get switched up or something like that. You know, it was like the last green light, you know.
Yeah, it just seemed like that beat was made for him. That is like my favorite Drag On
Thank
joint.
you, man. Yeah, no, it just worked. I mean, he one thing I could tell you is him and Darren when he was writing that, they spent like they meticulously worked on how he was gonna hit that flow. You know, it was supposed to be like a Biggie kind of vibe, you know, because he was used to, you know, people were used to him chopping around, like, you know, drop that, you know, like that kind of thing. And he really went for something different on there, and then people
That's
were
dope.
used to. So,
That's
and
dope.
it worked, man, and it worked. And the Swiss came in with the hook and sealed, you know, the whole thing up.
Yeah. So being from Yonkers, what's your earliest memory of hip hop culture?
For me, my earliest growing up, basically, I'm the youngest out of 5 kids, and there's a big distance between like the oldest three, about 12 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then and so like I'm like in maybe like first grade or younger, and they're already like going to clubs, and I'm already, you know, my brother used to be around with the New York City Breakers a lot. And so that stuff was like coming into my house or early.
Nice.
So even as a little kid, I was like, by the time I was 10, I had turntables. I was recording Red Alert and Molly Mall at the same time. Like when I was 10, 11, and I'd go to school, and I had a friend named Doobie, and we used to talk about like, yo, you heard that joint he played with the Inspector Gadget beat, and we were like kids too, so it was like, yo, they used the Inspector Gadget, and we were like, yeah, but did you hear what? Because it was hard because you wanted to, because Red Alert would play songs that Morley wouldn't play because they had beef with, you know, the different crews, you know.
Yeah.
So like you had to tape both, or you wouldn't hear like the New Juice Crew, because Red wasn't gonna play the New Juice
Uh-huh.
Crew. And then if you know, so you had to have a cassette, like basically in my living room stereo, like the family stereo, I had a cassette, and then I had a little box in my room, and I would do that, and I would stay up all night. Awesome too, Teddy Ted, Hank Love. I would also record like Lydio B, you know, on 89, and what was the other guy's name before Martin Moore? Like this is like, you know, they had like I remember they had a record by Slick Rick called "Treat Him Like a Prostitute" that I never heard anywhere except on there. Um, so I was like, you know, I loved it. You know, I loved the culture of it. I loved breaking. I wrote graffiti. That's how I got popular, like DJing, because I used to write Shok, and even though like I was young, I used to throw parties when I was like maybe 15, rent out little halls. And a lot of people came because I would give out flyers like in all the neighborhoods that I was up. And like when I would be giving out flyers, they'd be like, yo, you're Shok? the one who's up all over, you know, and I'm like, yeah, that's me. And they were like, all right. So I gave it to him, the flyer. And then surprisingly, like people from uptown Manhattan would end up popping up at my party. Like, I'm like, oh shit. So,
Nice.
you know, I mean, one time I had like 400 people at one of those at the Jewish Community Center, like on South Broadway. I just rented out for like $400, $5 a head. And that's how I started buying equipment and stuff. And that's like 15, 16, you know, 17.
How did you get started with the graffiti?
Just the culture. I mean, you know, in my stairs, you know, in my building, seeing people write, you know, there was a Whip used to write in my, what was the other dude? Whip. And somebody else used to write in my stairs, and they were up like on the streets too. So then I wrote in the steps in the building, and then I just was like, then I went out, and then I got addicted to it. And then I would go out with I had like different partners, and I would go out, but I was like so addicted to it and wanted to get up because it was a way to like, it was like marketing.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't like a true graffiti artist, like, you know, like where I could do throw ups and like, I just tagged. And the cool thing that I saw about it was like, I was instantly known. You know what I mean? Like I could go uptown. Like if I was up like in the Dykeman area, like, you know, on 207th and, you know, in that area. And I could just go there with one of my friends who might know a couple people. And then I'd be like, you know, oh, that Shok. I'm like, oh shit. And I was already like received. And I was like, that's good for the DJing. Cause like now it's like, then they'd be having like a party in someone's apartment. And I'd be like, yo, I'll DJ. And then that was like a way, you know, cause I would do anything, you know, like I would, you know, when people would move, I DJ in the apartment, in the kitchen, you know, like, you know, cause the apartment would be empty. So we would, we do that. Like I just, the culture, like I didn't have like my generation, we didn't have like now like parenting is like real one-on-one. Like the way I raised my kids is way different. Like we just kind of raised ourselves, and like it was, hip hop was like, you know, like even Mr. Magic like taught me stuff. Like he would say, be yourself or you might find yourself by yourself. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the show. Or he'd be like, what was another one? Any fool can learn. He said, any wise man can learn from the mistakes of others, but it takes a wise man. No, any fool can learn from the mistakes of others, but it takes a wise man to learn from their mistakes. Something like that. That was one he had. He had like 3 or 4 that he used to bounce around. I'm trying to remember them. But, you know, those were on my tapes, you know, and I used to go to the Chinese store in Getty Square in Yonkers, and I'd buy the blank tapes so I wouldn't erase, you know, and I'd use I would get a little allowance. I had little jobs, like my dad had a restaurant. I used to be like the waiter or whatever, take my tips, go straight to buy the new LL's album or whoever was, you know, they used to call me Little DJ at Music Man. You know, it was like, I love music since I was little. Like it just, you know, and hip hop was accessible, you know, because of my siblings and because they were in the scene, and
so it was kind of destined for you.
And they knew DJs too. Like, you know, they would back when I was little, like there was a battle of the DJs on 92 KTU. This is like even before hip hop was like on in the daytime. So at that time it was like a mix of like electro, Planet Rock was out. Like it's this kind of like eclectic mix of like hip hop becoming more commercialized, I guess. And even the battle of the DJs, one of the DJs went to Sacred Heart, which is a school in Yonkers, with my brother and sisters, and his name was Aldo Moren. And he was like the first DJ I saw in front of me at their Sweet 16. And he went on to be the owner of Cutting Records. He became my mentor. He distributed my independent label when I had it. And like he's responsible for like, you know, Al Nafish, It's Time, you know, if it's time, like early stuff that, and all the way down to like when it became, they called it Latin hip hop, which ended up becoming freestyle. You know, he's done, you know, like Cutting Records is like you know, a legendary New York label.
Nice.
And so it was just, you know, that everywhere I turned, it was very possible to me. You know, like I would go to a club and the DJ there knew they were spinning and it's like knew somebody I knew. Like it was like very accessible and it was like something I felt like I could do because so many people were doing it. And I felt like if I just put my work in, you know, like I could make it happen, you know?
No, that's dope. So what influence did DJ Red Alert have on you early
Okay.
on?
So what he did was he really made me really like connect with hip hop because he was playing all hip hop. Like all the other DJs would play like when it was on KTU, it was like they would play a couple hip hop records mixed in, and there would be some new wave, some like disco. It was like a mix. And then Red Alert was like, oh my God, he's playing all hip hop. Like it blew my mind. It was crazy. So when
Mm-hmm.
I found that, and I found Red Alert before I found Molly Moore. Molly Moore was like an accident one night. I'm taping Red Alert every night, and then I go over to BLS. I'm like, oh snap, it's over here too. And then I'm like, all right. So then I was like hooked on that too. So it's like you got to realize it's not like now where it's like hip hop is this big thing.
Yeah.
I'm just this little kid staying up while everybody else is asleep in my house, tuning in and being like, oh snap. That's how I found like 89U. Every
Mm-hmm.
night I'm just looking for somebody who's playing stuff that's hip hop because you don't hear it nowhere. So it was like, so I would go down the dial and be like, oh snap. Every night I would do that. And that's how I found even like 105, you know, with all those other late night shows
Mm-hmm.
after that on Saturday nights and stuff. So Red Alert made a big impact because he he was all hip hop and it made hip hop like a real thing. Like it was just wow, you know, this is something. This is like a whole mix show of hip hop, and that's how he really made an impact on me. And one of the coolest things is like that independent record, High Tech 24/7. You know, me looking up to Red Alert, and then all of a sudden, like I put that record out on my own, and I just put it in his mailbox, and I'm driving at 5 o'clock when he had like the 5 o'clock free ride on Hot 97.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just driving. This is like in 96. And he plays it.
Nice.
He ended up playing that record for like a year.
Mm.
And it was like, wow, it meant so much because it's like that was so cool to me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I listened to this guy's show, I recorded it. He influenced me like crazy to love hip hop. And then one day, like my first independent, it was, you know, it was a big deal because it was like I produced it, my own label,
Mm-hmm.
just put it in his mailbox, nothing big, no, you know, no like major company, and he felt it. So it
Yeah.
was like
Oh, that's
he
dope.
fed me, and it was like, and in turn, like I made something that I got him to play
Mm-hmm.
on the show that I basically worshipped
That you
growing up.
grew up on. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's dope.
yeah. So that was really dope.
That's dope. So what led you you know, not only to produce music, but also write like songwrite as well?
Just being in the studio, you know, like one of the things that it was when I was really in the game heavy, you know, like 98 to '02,
Mm-hmm.
which was like 24/7, you know, studio to studio, flying from here to there, whatever is happening, being there, you know, constantly. I realized like the more, because the way it worked back then was like people would get a budget,
Mm-hmm.
and they had artists could be out for years on mixtapes trying to do something, and then all of a sudden they got a budget one day, and then they would go to do the album, and for some reason there would always be this deadline, like, you know, they waited forever, they
Mm-hmm.
finally got a budget, and they want it done in a month.
Mm-hmm.
It was always like that. So then I was like, damn, if I can have an edge because I'm competing against these great producers, you know what I mean? Like just some of the best producers of all time I was competing with. And I was like, I could have a little bit of an edge if I come with a song completed.
Mm-hmm.
So like, is it, you know, if I could come to you and like for like example, like Jadakiss and Snoop Cruising, I played that with the hook already, you know, the same exact hook you hear on the record
Mm-hmm.
with the same people's, which could have been references, but no, they liked it and they left it. I played it done. So, and then you're thinking West Coast, you got this vibe, Jada, you know, and then Snoop jump and it's done. So it's not like they have to sit there and be like, damn, what am I gonna do with this? I'm giving them a direction, and I did that with Eve a lot, and it worked really well with Eve because she would see right away, you know, like Life So Hard was one, Heaven Only Knows, trying to think, oh Be Me came with the hook too. So like when you come with the hook, it makes when people are pressed for time, this is the way because you know what it is, like I'm very observant, and like I was just looking at my environment, and I tend to be more low key, and I was like, how can I just give these people, help them, you know, like I looked at it like Eve is constantly running around, she's doing tours, she's now got to do an album, she barely has time, like how can I make it stupid easy, joke easy for her, like she can write bars, like, you know, she could write a song in a day, no problem, less than, you know, like in hours. But if I could just do the rest for her, I was like, I feel like they would appreciate it. And if it was hot, then that much better, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what got me into like writing. And then, you know, then after you do it like that, you know, then you get into it, you know, like anything, you know, you do it and then you get into it, and then I enjoy it, you know, like I like to write, you know, even now, you know, like I still write stuff and record stuff, references, and, you know, just because I like doing it.
No, nice. And she seemed like she was a dope. I mean, number one, she was a dope artist, but she's a rare breed when you talk about female artists
Yeah.
because she writes her own stuff. Her delivery is crazy. She's diverse. She makes great songs. Like I always thought she was like top 5 female MCs of all time.
Well, I mean, I was always super impressed with Eve, like her talent, and not only that, like her, like who she is as a person. Like she was always mad cool, humble, like easy to talk to. She never you know, a lot of people develop this kind of thick skin in the industry where they very easily can ignore people until they need them.
Yeah.
Or like I mean, just totally block people out. You know, even people that are successful too, if they're not needed at that moment. And she never did that as to me, you know. She was always real cool. If I ever saw her, it was always like real cool. And I feel like talent wise, she's great. You know, she was always great. I think she could have, you know, kept on and on doing that, you know, but she's also really intelligent and talented in different ways, you know, like acting and everything. And she has a great personality. And I think she saw uh how much more money you can generate with a lot less work
Yeah.
doing these other things. You know, music is a hard grind, and we're at the, you know, as much money as music generates, it doesn't generate that much for the people who make it. You know, it generates a lot of money, but not for those who make it. Where like where you go to film, even doing music for film, you know, like if I sync something in a film, you know, I can get a great check, you know, and more money than I could get sometimes for a hit record, you know.
Oh wow.
And it's just that the film budgets, they're tremendous, you know. They you know, to pay for licensing and to score and, you know, anything music related in film is so much more money. And I think that, you know, you see all these artists who crossed over, like you know, Chris Lighty paved the way for a lot of that. Rest in peace, Chris Lighty. You know, for a lot of like LLs and Ice T's, and, you know, different people that crossed over into acting, because there was like a whole thing that happened.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't normal. And then like he did a lot of deals with like in the late 90s with, like, you know, the Hollywood people, and he crossed over a lot of rap artists into that genre, you know, of, you know, acting. And that I think opened a lot of people's eyes, and they were like, you look at 50 now, you know, 50's a smart guy, he's just doing a lot of film and TV. Just the money's just, it's so much better, you know. You can even flop, Like you can fail and you'll still generate more money than a successful
Wow.
album. Yeah, it's crazy,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah,
So
that's crazy.
Eve is the best. She's my favorite out of all the people I work with. Eve is the best, easily. Like I wouldn't even have to think twice.
Really? No, that's
Yep,
dope.
for
Um,
sure.
so you were a member of the Ruff Ryders original production team, but how did that opportunity come about?
When I had my independent label, we had a mutual friend, uh, Joaquim, who's one of the CEOs. Was We had a mutual friend, uh, this guy Isaiah, and he was also a rapper. And Isaiah told Joaquim to come and check me out in the basement, where I had like a little studio set up and I had my independent label. And he stopped by, and that's when we first met. And he saw my little setup. He liked the beats, and he was like, "Yo, why don't you come by, play some stuff?" Went by. At that time, this is probably like, I'm gonna say 95, 96 maybe. And when I went up there, it was like they didn't have too much happening. They had like an NPC. Someone was there who was like not really familiar with studio equipment. They didn't have the setup. They didn't really have anything going. And at that time, in my head, I'm like, I have more going than this guy
Mm,
right now.
mm,
Because at that moment, that's how I felt, because they were managing the L.O.X. They weren't like a force with producers. X hadn't really, made the noise at all. He not even Get At Me Dog was out. So it was kind of like, I don't know. So I
mm,
wasn't in a big rush to like work with them.
mm,
And then somewhere down the line, the Isaiah came in, and he had the cassette when they freestyled over Get At Me Dog, that I think it ended up on a Clue tape.
mm-hmm.
But he had the cassette like that night, and he ran over to me. He was like, "Yo, listen to this." And I was like, I put it on, and that was the first time that my radar went up for them, like for Ruff Ryders. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
damn, this is crazy. I was like, and the other thing that I thought to myself that night was like, if this works, like I had a lot of like time to like analyze it,
Uh-huh.
because I was like, if this works, because it was very different. It was that more aggressive. The production was grittier, and like, see, at that time, because I was a very underground producer, and I liked the like Stretch and Bobito vibe, like that real underground
Yeah.
sound. And I even looked at the L.O.X Bad Boy as more of a commercial sound. So when I heard that grittiness, and I was like, damn, but there's something happening here that's like crossover to me in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's gritty, but I could see this on a Clue tape. It's
Mm-hmm.
gritty, but like, which is still underground, but it was like more of a mainstream underground, like a Clue underground
Yeah.
versus like a Stretch and Bobito underground. So I was like, all right, let me see how this goes. And then it blew up on, and people started talking about it like crazy. And I was like, damn, it's kind of working. So I went over, playing beats some more, seeing what's going on, but I didn't want to sign because the deal was crap, which I'm paying for still to this day, but not in that way. That's that. But what happened was Joaquin was like, "Yo, come downstairs. I want to play you something." And this is like Get At Me Dog was out. I think the video was out, and like you're starting to hear a little bit of noise. I don't. He still hadn't heard X on features and stuff. It was like that moment right before he had the cam feature. He had a few things that happened at once.
Mm-hmm.
It was like right before that. And he's like, let me play you some. We went to his truck and he played the whole X first album.
Mm.
And he knew I was gonna sign after that. I was like, I'll sign whatever you want. Just send it to my lawyer. And then that was it. I signed and I became in-house, and it was mainly at that time, it was PK Grease. Grease wasn't technically in-house, but he might as well have been, because I mean, he produced a majority of the first X album, and he stayed doing many songs with X, you know, throughout his career. And PK, me, and Swiss at that time. You know, when I signed on, I was like the first person to sign, aside from like those like foundational people who were on the first album.
Yeah.
I was the first one, like right after that. And you know, that's how I signed, really. That by hearing that album. And despite my lawyer was like, I can't, you know, he was like, you shouldn't sign this and blah blah. I was like, you don't. I told him, I was like, you don't understand. I was like, these guys are gonna be, you know how like there's Bad Boy, and then you know, I was telling him about, you know, big, you know, like I was like, you have like you know, like Queen Latifah has her company, and you know, I was like, yo, this right here is gonna be like that. See, he was like, I don't know, I hope you're right, blah blah blah. And I was right. I had a
So you
feeling, you
saw
know,
it early on.
listening to music since I was a little kid, following things and being so in tuned. I just it just you get a rhythm for what's next and what's coming, and you just feel it. You know what I mean? And I was in tune since I was, think about it, I'm in my like early 20s at this point. I've been like studying hip hop since I was 10.
Yeah.
So it's not like I was just like a gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a calculated analyzation of the situation.
True.
I was like, I looked at everything. I looked at the L.O.X. I looked at their popularity. I looked at everything, and I was like, with this right now, and this is it, you know. And I knew they were crowded with people, and I knew they had a lot of talent, you know, like bubbling. So I was like, and I knew that you could feel the hunger. It was just a feeling. I just knew it. I was like, and I looked at it like doing something, you know, like with McDonald's or something, like a big company,
Yeah.
because it's so hard to let's say get into the restaurant business, you know, like let's say McDonald's is going to back up, you got an idea to make whatever tacos or something, you know, some company, and McDonald's is going to back it up, and they don't give you the greatest deal, excuse me, but they're going to put you like in every mall.
Yeah.
And for like 4 or 5 years, the deal stinks, but then you're in the malls and you could take, you know, do what you got to do from there.
True.
And that's how I looked at it.
True. Yeah. I remember I'm trying to remember I think the first song I heard DMX on, because it was just a different vibe. Like his energy is unmatched to me.
Oh yeah.
I think it was that Mike Geronimo song.
Wow. Good call.
Yeah, and then right after that, I think
Wow.
I heard
Yeah.
him on what was it?
That's what I mean with the features. Like he had a moment where there was like
He was
features.
killing
It was,
features.
yeah,
And
it
it
was
didn't
like, it
matter
was
who
lined
else
up.
was on it.
Yeah, it was lined up perfectly. Like he
Mhm.
really, they did that. Like I got to give them a lot of credit. You know, Ruff Ryders, as far as, you know, the way they managed to break him as an artist, it was done really well, really well.
Yeah, and if
Because
you think
they put
about
him on the right stuff.
yeah, and if you think about the songs that they had, the artists, like you said, they put him on the right stuff. If you think about the artists that they had him on these tracks with, like the Mike Geronimo one to me was crazy because you know Mike Geronimo was already buzzing, and then I don't. It's just like he went first, you know what I mean, and he just murdered it at that point. And then I heard was it the LL one next? 4 4 3 2 1.
There, there was like there was the LL one. There was the when he got jumped on Money Power Respect.
Yeah.
There was, and the Cam one, which Cypher Sounds reminded me of the other day on his Instagram. You know, the Pull It, that like that, can't forget that really, really solidified X. That was a big record.
No,
and it was hot. And that happening at the same time as all the other stuff we just said really was like, oh damn, like this this dude is hot. And then he goes and he starts dropping this album, which is ridiculous. To me, that album, see, people do top tens and people forget about X a lot and all that stuff. But one thing that album, that first album, I'm not on it, but that first album is different because it changed a tide. It was like, and to me, that's something remarkable. It's remarkable. Like when you make an album that changes the tide and makes people have to rethink everything they're doing when they go into the studio, that should be like honored throughout the history of the genre. In my opinion, that should be like highly honored. Like
I agree.
That, just like Nas, you with Illmatic, like Nas, when he did that, he made everybody like have to rethink, because you had this like really boom bap sound. You had multiple producers, which was different at that time. It was always, like if it was Black Moon, Evil D, you know what I mean? It was always Premier. If it's Guru, there was this thing of always one producer, him using different producers. And then on top of that, having like this boom bap sound that was still commercially viable, crazy real. And I mean, let's not even go into the lyricism on there, but I mean, that to me, I mean, people, maybe I'm biased because, I work with X, but I really feel like It's Dark and Hell is Hot does not get its proper due, because it did the same thing. X gets overlooked because it's true. He's not as lyrical. He's not Nas. He's not. I mean, he's the intricacy and the way that he connects things, it's not at that level. But no one else can get on a track and just kind of like how Jay says, and there's that funny video going around where he just growls and when he's backstage.
Yeah.
No one has the presence, and no one, other people, if they said X's lyrics, it wouldn't even sound right. Other people, if they said Nas's lyrics, it would be like, yo, that's fire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With a different tone, a different
feel
voice.
Him though. Like my thing with X was always, I feel like it's only one other artist that I can put him in that same category, and I feel like that's Tupac. And I know I read before he didn't like that comparison, but for me, it comes into place where it takes a different type of artist for you to be able to feel their lyrics, feel their pain.
Yeah, like it's one I believe thing that
to be able to spit, but you could automatically relate to X through his lyrics.
Yeah,
like you could feel that.
Yeah, it's different. He could say he didn't have the. You know what? It's kind of interesting because, like, Nas is my favorite all time MC. But like X, he wouldn't even, in my opinion, he didn't need to, I should say, work as hard, to craft like, the way the syllables, the way pun, the syllables rhyme here with this and then the first word and the third word. He didn't have to work.
But I don't think that was his crowd.
He just went in. Yeah. He just went in, and it was like he's just this force of like a human being, and he just is this, whatever you want to call it, this entity that just comes on this track and dominates and pulls you in, and then makes you wonder, who is this?
Stories too. I love when he told stories.
And the story, he's sick storyteller. Like, I mean, still one of my favorites is, I mean, it's not even like that much of a story, but I just love it. The ATF, knock on the door, boom, 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 ATF. Like that, I feel like I'm in the car with him in Greece. When I listen to that, like, it's like I'm in the back of the car, like, oh shit, another one. It's like I'm so there when I'm listening to that. And so yeah, he rest in peace. He's an incredible storyteller. Just a presence, you know what I mean? Just a presence, and you can't teach that. You can't. It just is. It's just something that you're born with, something God-given, something that people can try as hard as they want to have, but they just you either do or you don't.
Yeah.
It's just, and I just feel like he gets left out of the conversation too much,
And I definitely think I think he pushed the bar in his own way, because on top of all the stuff we already said, like you look at certain topics that he touched on, like when he would have the conversation between him and the demon,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that he would carry that over from album to album to album and just keep
Yes.
carrying the story on.
Yeah.
Everybody can't do that. That, to me, stuff like that was his niche. But again, it was relatable because you deal, especially as you get older, you know what I mean, and you get more familiar with life. Like that's the type of stuff you deal with. So I feel like
Yeah.
that was kind of one of his niches, was just he was
And that's
relatable.
mad hard to do. Like
Yeah.
it's mad hard to like take your real life, at least in my opinion, my dabbling that I've done in, just little songwriting here and there.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to like put that into the words and into a song and into a mood that actually reflects how you really feel. It's not easy to do that. It's super hard, and he did it like really well, with the right music, the right tracks, the right voices, his voicing changes.
Mm-hmm.
Kendrick is the master at that now, changing
Mm-hmm.
voice. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he blows my mind. It's like, he's sounds like a white guy playing golf 1 minute, and then he's like, he's amazing. I love Kendrick. But X was probably one of the earlier people in hip hop to do sort of playing with the voices, even when he would respond to himself and he would,
Mm-hmm.
he had other characters within himself, and that he would play out like in different songs and stuff and change his voice too. And I think I don't know that many others before X. I'm sure there's a couple songs, if I really thought about it, but I feel like he was probably more I guess he did it more often, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
than people did before he did.
I think he did it better than most too, if not all. I think Cam had one with D Ruggs. That was tight.
Mm-hmm.
I think Tracy Lee had one. That was tight. But even with those, I don't think they're messing with, like, I'll just take the one, the first one he did with the him versus, him talking to the demon. Like, to me, that's
Yeah,
just, dude, that's different.
it is. It is. And
That's
it's
different.
like it takes what we all go through. It's super relatable. No wonder he sold
Mhm.
millions. I mean, and that's why he reached across different cultures and different kinds of people, because it's very relatable to no matter who you are. Like
Mhm.
how could you not relate to that? You know what I mean? Like we're all fighting those types of things, So it's
Exactly.
like, yeah. And I feel like those songs are where, his millions and millions come from, in my opinion. Like you got the hit records, but those songs, those really, that's what sells a whole album.
Yeah.
It's different now. You just pick out your songs. Back then you had to get the whole album. And what's going to sell a whole album? Those types of songs. As you got the hits, but then you're like, yeah, but look at this. This is
Mhm.
incredible.
Exactly. And he's one of the few artists that you can, like, almost every album you can just play from start to finish. You can't say that about too many. At least I can't say that
True.
about too many.
True. I
Um,
agree.
so I know you also produced Slippin' by DMX. What can you tell us about that studio session?
That one was I had just signed with Ruff Ryders. I went down like literally like the day before, and they were like, there's gonna be a limo to meet you at the office on, I think it was like 54th Street or something. I can't remember the address, but they had the office there, and they were like, there, and gonna take you to the airport, go work on X's second album. And I was like, all right, went. And I had like all my stuff with me, went to basically got over there, went with PK in Greece. And as soon as I got off the plane, went straight to the studio and got there. I still had my bags, and I went and started playing beats because there was some stuff going on. So I was like a good opportunity for me to start playing beats. So I started playing beats, and then I think Swiss came in and he was like, "Yo, you got joints for X? And I was like, he was like, yeah. He was like, hell yeah. So he called X. X came over, and this is literally like I just signed. I just got there. X starts going through the DAT. He's like, skip that, skip. He skips like maybe 5 or 6, and it surprised me like crazy because when you shop beats, if you don't get them in 5 seconds, 6 seconds, they skip it usually back then at least. It had to grab people right away. Like I got skipped on intros many times, and I was like, geez, at least let the beat drop. But you know how subtle the intro is for Slippin', right?
Yeah.
He let it play. He let it go. He was skipping, and he just
that
let it go.
Spokes on.
And then he just let it go. And then him and Swiss looked at each other like they had maybe been looking for something for those lyrics. I don't know. It was just like a look they gave each other, and he started mouthing the lyrics. And X looked at me. He was like, "Lay that," and I was like, "Okay." So I had my my discs and everything, and I laid the beat right away. Went to the 2-inch, and probably an hour after he said lay that, I laid it, and he did his vocals one take. I remember straight through. Then we got someone was, I mean, it happened really fast, that record. I laid the beat, he did his vocals. We got the background vocals like done right after. And then the person from Def Jam was like asking me to clear for sample clearance, and everybody was talking about the record. And I had just got there. I didn't even know everybody that, really. And the engineer, Rich Keller, was like, yo, everybody's asking like, who the hell just came in and did this song? and I was like, shit, you know what I'm saying? But it's funny because, I've had people say, you got lucky or whatever. But yeah, okay, I got lucky. Let's just say I'm just for argument's sake. I'm a kid, 10 years old, recording, doing parties. I'm like 25 at the time, 26. Finally, you know what I'm saying? I get a more. How's that luck?
For that since
that's
day
what I'm
one.
saying. Like, that's what I mean. So it's like, it's kind of funny when people say that to me because it's like, yeah, you could look at it like that, but it really doesn't make sense because I was so prepared. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like he said, lay it. I mean, next thing you know, I could have, like, if I was unprofessional, I wasn't prepared, I couldn't find my disc, I whatever, that could have lost that moment. The world would never have Slippin'. It's very possible because then the next thing you know, an hour later, someone else plays something else, it gets laid, and then that song's done. And then Slippin', that may never even happen. So it's like, I don't really say it's luck. I mean, it's a combination of things. It's right place, right time, being prepared, working hard, having quality product, being talented, being persistent. It's like, it's a whole list of reasons why stuff happens, But that's how that record happened. And it's the same equipment too. Roland MC50, a Kai S950, a Korg X5 on the percussions. And I actually, because it's funny, people try to get gritty sounds now, but I had sampled the Grover Washington Jr. Moonstreams off of vinyl, and it had some pops. So I actually went and got the CD from Tower. Not when I was out there, but before, when I made the beat, and I wanted to clean it up. So I actually sampled it off the CD to make it sound more clear. Cause it was funny because like we wanted to be gritty, but then when Dre came out and he came out with Chronic and it was so clean and beautiful, it made me rethink. You have Woo Dirty, but then I was like, damn, but look how beautiful Dre's stuff sounds. You know what I mean? So I wanted to like have my stuff sounding clean too. So I cleaned up that sample, I remember, and I like went towards making it sound clean and big, which was cool because it ended up being like a top 40 type of record, So that was kind of cool. So
would you say that's your biggest record to date?
I mean, for a lot of reasons it is, because it has meaning. I don't know if sales wise it almost isn't, because I think I did Here We Go Again on the next album, and that sold more. I think that did like 5 times platinum. I mean, the Slippin' single by itself is platinum. but I think I will always feel like that's the biggest record because it gets the most emotional response. It's affected people. People email me. I've had people email me from across the world sometimes, find my email, and you don't know what this song has done. I had to find out who made the music, and I've had people just hug me, like just meet somebody and be like, yo, you did that, and they just hug me, like almost cry, like,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's pretty amazing. And I feel like, sometimes I get down and shit, like depressed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of like comforts me a little bit to be like, you know what? You're just a kid from Yonkers, like practically a statistic. And you made one of the greatest songs ever, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's probably 1,000 other greatest songs. Yeah. But it's one of them,
Yeah.
and I mean, what more could I ask, really? I've had my ups and downs in the business and everything, but that was my dream, and I did it. You know what I mean? So I definitely, oh, I'm always gonna say that's the biggest one to me, easily. I mean, I did a lot of stuff. I did, Remy Martin's first record, with Pun on Yeah Baby. I did that. I did another song on there with him, Drag, and Fat Joe. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff. I mean, the list of people I've worked with. I got to work with Tina Marie, who was like one of my favorite
Nice.
R&B singers ever.
Mm-hmm.
Rest in peace. Which also happened to be one of Eve's, which was pretty cool because she was like, "I'm getting Tina Marie to because I had a reference hook."
Mm-hmm.
She's like, "I'm getting Tina Marie to sing." I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that. That's so dope." So it's like, I've had a lot, some cool stuff happen, some cool stuff, and it was a good run, and I'm grateful.
No, that's dope. So I know also you're working on a documentary.
Yeah, the documentary is basically it's going to be about my life, and a big part of it is going to be, involving like my lawsuit with Ruff Ryders, the fact that I won. It's going to talk about the music business and just a lot of the bad practices. Going to have other people on there who can kind of, tell their story. I mean, I don't want to like give away too much, but it's crazy that like when the news came out that I won my case, I talked to a lot of people, and it was weird because they're telling me their story and it sounds like my story.
Mm.
Down to, I mean, there's one producer two who, because when you don't get paid and you expect to get paid, and you're like, picture it like this, like let's say you just had a job wherever, you're a chef at a restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden you're supposed to get paid. So like you get paid in a certain way where, like, let's say they give you the advance for being the chef for that year, blah blah blah, and then after that you get a different type of pay, and then that carries on, and then all of a sudden you don't get paid. So now you're like in a really bad spot. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
you can't pay your rent, you gotta like downsize. And the stories were the same because what happens with these, the way the production, money ends up is you get these advances, and then you're supposed to get your royalties. But a lot of what's happened to a lot of producers is when you're supposed to get those royalties, the people who are like in between you and the label,
Mm-hmm.
they pocket the whole thing,
Wow.
and then they don't give it to you. So like let's say you make a big record, it does really well like for that quarter, and you're supposed to get like 70K, let's say. They just to keep the whole 70K instead of giving you your, they're supposed to keep, let's say, 20% or 15%. They just keep the whole thing.
Wow.
And then what happens is, and that's why our stories are similar, because like I'll be talking to them and they'll be like, I'm like, yeah, I had to put all my stuff in storage. I lost like my record collection, blah, 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 my studio furniture. And then I'm talking to, that's what happened to me. And then he's like, yo, the same thing happened to me. Because
Mm-hmm.
think about it logically. You just get this dip, and you're expecting these monies.
Yeah.
So what's the next thing you do? The first thing you do is, all right, I got to move. I got to downsize. Let me put my stuff in storage. But then it keeps going, and you can't get any resolution. And because it takes years of court, you have to find a lawyer who's willing to take it. You have to pay.
You got to pay out.
Yeah. So the way I survived it is like, I basically ended up going into like my job now, like my full time is I'm in the broadcast engineering department at the United Nations, which is basically repairing and, installing, the conference rooms, cameras, radio studios, TV studios.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I was able to survive. And that's what it's going to be about, because I hope that somewhere along the line, this can stop, because it is really greedy. It's very unfair. It sucks, man. Like to know that you should, I mean, I'm by no means would I be like a millionaire, well, it was that much money, but I'm not saying, a millionaire, I guess, someone who's maintaining that type of money for like years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is that much money, but it changes your life. You know what I'm saying? That's life-changing money. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have access to that, it makes your family life difficult. It makes everything hard, and it can, messes with your mental health. And that's what I want the documentary to bring up, all those points where it's not just money. It's like you're messing with people's lives. You know what I mean? Like people who work hard. It's not, if you're successful at all in music, you're not a slack. Like it's mad hard to like get placements. It's mad work. Like people don't just, lazy people who don't do anything don't become successful in the music business. Like you just can't. Like you got to really be on the ball. You got to work hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's messed up to do that to people like that, who are dedicated, who work hard, who give you good product, who help your company to be what it is, who make records like Slippin,
mm-hmm.
and help everybody to actually like keep the funds. You know what I mean? To not even just give, the money, and it's a very hard fight. It's a very hard fight in court and everything. And I hope somewhere along the line, like maybe the documentary will spark some really smart lawyers out there, some people who want to do something good in the world. Like, I don't know how to fix it, but maybe if I can plant a seed for somebody, how I love music since I was 10, and that's my obsession. I know all about it. Maybe there's someone out there who wants to do that with law, or they've loved it since they were young, and they see my documentary and it sparks something, and then 15, 20 years down the road, they make the change. That's my hope. Like if I could put that seed, I'm not expecting it to change everything, but if it can be a seed, then I'll be happy. No,
I understand that. And that's got to be a rough situation to go through. Who are some of the producers that influenced you and your style, and what, if anything, would you say that you borrow from them?
Well, my producers that I studied early on, Q-Tip, excuse me, definitely Q-Tip. I mean, because that low end theory, I mean, blew my mind. Like as a producer, Pete Rock, the Mecca and the Soul Brother album. I mean, just crazy. The production, I mean, Premier. Premier is so consistent, and Premier started with like Manifest, and then he changed his sound up again to like Just to Get a Rep, that era. Mm-hmm. And then he turned into this like boom bap definition, like later on in his career. And so Premier is way up there too. Buck Wild. I mean, I remember I listened to, I mean, it's not even a popular record, but the production to me, the beat, it was Funk Dubious. I think if Your Soul Loves the Sun, Money Rock On. I can't remember the name of it, but the beat that Buck Wild put on that remix, it was a clear looking vinyl. I played that beat like, I wouldn't be exaggerating if if I said like 100 times, like over like a
It's
week,
like
in
that
a week,
sometimes.
for a week. I just,
Mhm.
because it was the way, I was studying it because there's a science to taking samples and putting drums and choppiness, yet making it sound full and smooth. It's not easy. It's like,
Mhm.
it's not like you can just, now, well, now these days they sell you everything like, all done and work,
Yeah.
like all the hard work, like that you had to do before. But back then, I promise you, it wasn't easy because you would take chopped drums, put it in, and it was choppy. So I kept listening to these guys, and I would say those are probably the main ones. And I really studied them, and then later on, I definitely got to give credit to like the other Rough Rider producers, like PK, Grease, and Swiss, like because you have to like now they gave me the order of I'm this like sample guy from the underground, and they're like, we don't use samples. So I got away with Slippin because it was too late and it already happened, and it was like such a beloved record. But after that, they would like looking to see if I had a sample in it. So if you'll notice, like the rest of my stuff I placed, it's no samples.
Mm.
They were strict about that. So I'm like, holy crap. So I had to like really tune my sound a bit, play more, get more of the modules, and get into like making stuff that isn't sample based.
Mhm.
Which was, it's not like I had never done that, but I never had it imposed on me.
Okay.
Like I was always free to, like in the studio,
Create
just
whatever.
just do whatever. Oh, this is dope sample. All right, let's sample it. With them, it was like a hard rule, where once in a while one would sneak by, but not, and they were never happy about that, And it's because I mean, it's just really honestly, it's a shame because a lot of great records, could have happened. Extra more great records, there was
Mhm.
many that happened, but picture, what if we could have sampled a little more freely in the camp? Maybe we'd have like four more great records, in my opinion,
Mhm.
like four more like really great records. And because on the first album you see the samples, but it's not a music thing, it's more of a greed thing. It's more of making more money from the publishing and owning more of it, and which they kept. you know
Mhm.
so it's like that's why they did that, and it forced a sound, onto like the camp. It
Mhm.
wasn't I'm pretty sure, I know I would have sampled more. I know that.
Mm.
I definitely would have sampled more.
Are you still producing?
Yeah, I produce, but it's like it's an interesting thing, man. Like life, I'm 47.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a weird thing because music is such a part of me and so important to me. I mean, I listen to stuff with my kids, and you know, like Kendrick's like right now, he's like, I love him. So like, when he came out with his new album, they were like, yo, Kendrick, like, so I'm still loving music
Mhm.
and hip hop and other kinds of music. And I'm still creating it. I'm still making it. But I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna share something with you. I mean, it's weird because I'm gonna tell you this is exactly what happens to me. Because like I have a different job now. I'm still going through the lawsuit. I'm older, and I sit there and I think about the process.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes I sit there, I got something hot, and I think about, because I know the way it works,
Mhm.
and I'm like, all right, so if I wanted to get this placed, what would I have to do? All right, you would have to do this. You'd probably have to do this. You'd have to be consistent. You have to do that. That's going to do this, and then and then I go through all the different things, and the amount of like commitment
Mhm.
that it takes. And then I think to myself, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I don't know if the end result will be worth it, because you get into this like more mature way of thinking where you're like, I'm content. I'm like in a different place.
I guess less
I've kind of,
stress.
yeah, less stress. I've already kind of hit certain goals,
Mm-hmm.
and do I want to like beat myself up for it? And if because the question that happens to me is like, let's just say best case scenario, this is a hit, this becomes Billboard or whatever, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
What is that going to mean? You know what I mean? Because I know that the next one, it doesn't come. It's not like you make a hit and now you don't have to work. Nah, you make a hit, now you got to work just as hard. Now people are eyeing you. They're seeing you more as a competitor. So you got to deal with that, the blockage, the whole politic,
Mm-hmm.
and that like that part, like because I've been through a lot of like life stuff, spiritual stuff, and I've changed a lot. And that part of me that is like the more ambitious, competitive one, he's not really like the guy anymore. You know what I'm saying in my head? You know what I'm saying? Like I sat him down. I was like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm happy. Like I don't need to do that right now. So it's kind of a weird thing because while music is something I love and I always want to make music, making it on a big scale, it's costly. It costs you time. It costs you effort. It costs you stress. And if I don't know, there's a. Can I give you a quick story? It's like a little story. There's this affected me a lot, and I read it once. It's about a guy who he goes on a rich man's property. He fishes every day. Rich man doesn't bother him. It's like, all right, whatever. This guy wants to fish on my property, all good. After a while, rich man keeps seeing this dude come by, gets like one fish, bounces. He's like, yo, what are you doing? You come here every day. Don't you know that if you fished all day, sold all those fish, saved up money, bought another boat, hired somebody, and on and on and on. Next thing you'll have a whole fleet. And then you can do whatever you want. You can just chill all day and you'll be making money. And the guy looks at the rich guy and he goes, but that's what I do already. So it's like with some form of wisdom as you get older, I think, as you kind of like look at life and you kind of like count the cost. Excuse me. And I don't, I don't feel like the cost is worth it.
No, definitely understand that. And especially with the success that you've had. I mean, like you said earlier, what's next? What's the next plateau?
Yeah. I mean, the only thing is, people get in pockets of popularity and they can be consistent and, they have these like, they become these icons.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's rare to do what I did, and it's insanely rare to do what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, like whatever. I don't know. I'm just going to make up some fake numbers. If it's like 1 out of a million to do what I did, it's 1 out of 10 million to do what they're doing. Those consistent like Timberlands and, all these people or Swiss or it takes a lot of things, a lot of spotlight, a lot of notoriety. And it's not necessarily the music. It's the notoriety of, because I remember even like stepping out one time with Swiss and we're just on our way somewhere and people recognizing him. And this is like a little early on. And he's like, yo, you don't understand. I was just in that video for like 1 minute or, 1 second or something. And he's like, and you don't understand the power of BET. Like he says some shit like that to me. And I was like, yeah, I guess not, but it really is being on the screen, being recognizable, being someone like that is really a part of longevity. But there's a cost involved in there too, right? And also some luck, some right place, right time, support, and catching a wave also, and being good at it. It's not easy too, like to be that guy in the middle of all that. Some personalities don't take to that very well. Some people embrace it and it's like they were built for it.
Yeah.
Other people, it's just like, nah, that's not really my thing. You
Mhm.
know, I'd rather be over here and like, you know, just chill, and you
Exactly.
guys be over there, you know. So there's a lot of like components, you know. It's not like a simple thing, you know, like, oh, I just want to be. No, you gotta like, it's not for everybody. It really isn't. It
Yeah.
really isn't for everybody.
No, definitely understand that. So, what does the remainder of 2022 look like for you?
The rest of 2022, that's a good question. Hopefully healthy, because my wife just had COVID.
Ooh.
Hopefully I stay healthy. I don't get it. Because apparently there's like a catchy strain all of a sudden in New York City.
Mhm.
So hopefully healthy, and the rest of the year, it's funny. I don't have a hard plan. You know, hopefully I'll be in my cabin. Sometimes, well, it's not really mine. I rent out a cabin